Okay, so we are going to start this conversation. I truly believe it is a needed conversation. We have Danielle Bertrand here, and I want her to tell us a little bit about her, but she's a doc, y'all. She's on her way to being a doc, y'all. We are going to have a conversation about the state of education and its impact on teachers. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience in this area, and I thought that it would be awesome if she would share her expertise and her knowledge and what she has learned in her journey throughout all of this. For those of you who follow me, you know that it is always about checking that inner man. It is always about looking at how life is, how we are navigating life from a mental health aspect, from a spiritual aspect, and also from a personal aspect. And that's what we do. And so I want to kind of move out the way, and I want Danielle to tell us a little bit about what she does and where she's been and who she is.
Well, thank you, Ebony, for having me. I am Danielle Bertrand, the preventative burnout specialist. And that name did not come without burnout, without me personally experiencing it. But as far as who I am, I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but now I live in Dallas, Texas. I was an educator in the classroom for 10 years. And year two, I experienced burnout. And experiencing burnout was something that I never saw coming, and I didn't know what it was until I was already in it. And
Mm,
so my goal is, what I do is to help people identify the symptoms before they need recovery. So I want to be on the preventative side of that as much as possible, but also to let people know you can recover, because I burned out in year two, but I told you I finished 10 years. So you can recover and be well in the career that you chose, especially if God wants you to be an educator, then there's a way to recover and be well. And so, what I do is go into corporations and school districts to provide professional developments so that you understand that there can be joy in teaching again. So many times we lose the joy of it. And so, all we get is the burnt out part of it, where we're just giving, giving, giving. And if you're educated like me, you're probably a high achiever, right? Like that was something you probably had really good grades. You probably was a teacher's pet. That's probably who you were. And because of that, in your job, you go above and beyond. And you look around, you're teacher of the year, but all your other relationships are failing.
mm,
That's no good. It's no good to be thriving in one part of your life and then everything else is suffering. And so that's why I understand the importance of professional developments around preventing or reversing burnout, because you are an amazing educator, but you just need to reignite your joy again.
awesome, awesome. Wow, awesome. So, one of the things that I would love to kind of start off with, and as you can see, I want to dive right into it because I know that this is going to be good. Talk to us a little bit about what burnout looks like.
Mhm. So burnout for me, I was teaching again year two, so very fresh in this. And honestly, my undergrad is not in teaching. I'm a business major, right? And so I actually fell in love with teaching, but it was because I saw a need. I saw kids fifth grade, but they were reading on a second grade level, and that broke my heart, because what's happening. And it's one thing to know there's a problem, it's another thing to help be a solution to that. And so that's how I even got into education. And so again, I was year two, I was teaching at an alternative middle school, so that was a whole nother story. But I started realizing that all my time, even when I was outside of the classroom, I was thinking about the classroom. I
Mhm.
was thinking about lesson plans or where this person gonna sit and, you know, just all of the things. And it was consuming me. And at that time, me and a friend owned a dance studio and I love dance. That's why I was a business major to open a dance studio. I didn't want to do things I love anymore, not just teaching, but dance, ministry things, traveling. Like I just didn't have the energy. And so burnout looks like exhaustion from in a way that you can't you can't sleep it away, right? Like just taking a nap is not going to do it. That's not enough. And even as I was kind of thinking about it this weekend, and you know, just really reflecting, God told me, He said, I would desire excellence from you, but not exhaustion. God wants us to be excellent, but it should not lead to you being so exhausted that you can't even fulfill your kingdom assignment. And you know, He doesn't want that. And so it literally looks like all the things that you love, they do nothing for you. You don't want to do them, you have no desire. It just, you lose all of it because you have spent so much time thinking about the classroom and the kids and all of this stuff that your life outside of the classroom, it really is non-existent. And that's what it looked like for me, that my life outside of the classroom really didn't have any substance anymore.
Mhm. And so some of the things that I heard as you were talking is just that consuming part
Mhm.
where your teaching role, this role now has consumed you. So you're thinking about it when you're not there, you know, you're worrying about it, you are planning even when you should be resting, those kinds of things. And then the other thing that I heard what which is always kind of like a red flag for me is losing your energy for what you used to love. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, and because I think burnout it doesn't just happen. That's the thing. Like it's not just like you wake up and you burnt out. Like there are signs of, okay, well maybe you love doing something and you pass it up one weekend. You're like, oh, I really need to work on the lesson plan. And then another weekend comes and you do the same thing. And before you know it, 2, 3 months have went by and you haven't done the thing that you love, and you're not even aware that that thing that you love was helping you push through teaching. It was giving you the level of joy you needed to actually make it through, and you're thinking, well, if I stop that I can be a better teacher. Well, in reality you need to keep doing that so you can maintain the level of teaching that you already have and that you can actually grow. And so understanding that the things that we do outside of the classroom, they are beneficial to us. They are not, you know, oh, I don't. And that's another thing about this high achiever and people, I don't deserve to be able to do that because my students only got this score. That, like, we sometimes are not able to separate our work from us. Like this is what you do as a job, and this is not your identity, and our identities become educators. And so when we get burnt out in the classroom, it feels like our whole life is just, there's no more for us to give because we put so much inside of that. And so understanding it didn't happen overnight, but there were little things that you consistently said yes to in the classroom and no to outside that caused this dimmer of who you are.
Mhm. And I think one of the things that's also important is the loss of direction, because sometimes when you lose your passion, you lose a level of focus and motive. And so
Yeah.
then the question becomes, why am I even doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have so many people who will leave because they've kind of lost their sense of purpose,
Yeah.
so to speak. And so, you know, no longer having the energy for that thing which you loved, or no longer having the passion for
Mm-hmm.
that thing in which you love is so important because, I know that there are many people like myself who, who are watching or listening, who feel like, I don't do anything that I don't feel passionate about. Like, I don't, if I don't believe that it's connected to my purpose, I won't do it. But if I don't have direction, or if I have lost the energy for passion, then what happens then?
Yeah. And then what usually happens is that it could be God trying to transition you.
Yeah.
That could literally be it. So sometimes like I'm burned out. No, he might really be trying to transition you to something else. But if you are still knowing that I belong here, it's really finding out where did I lose the joy, right? Am I implementing things of joy into my teaching? At one training I did, if you love group work and really seeing your students do experiments, add some into your coursework, right? Like we as educators, especially as teachers, that classroom is yours. You are pretty much the final say. If there are things that you enjoy and that are going to be beneficial to your students, put it in. Like find little spaces so that you can enjoy what you're doing. So I taught business because I love business. Some people just need to just teach a different grade level. Like sometimes it's really there's a transition that's happening and we just stay, but it's like, no, I understand you really like these kindergartners, but to be honest, you probably need to work with the ninth graders. And so sometimes it's changing districts, grade levels. The problem really could be your job is too far away from your house and
Mm,
you frustrated before you get there.
mm,
And that could really be one of the big issues. And so when I'm looking, I'm like, how much traffic is it going to be? Because they're not going to get the best dang you if I just sit in an hour of traffic. They're just not. I'm going to already be at a level of frustration.
mhm.
So it's changing those things and might say, "Oh, I can't," but you can. Like there are still ways to maneuver that, but you have to realize and pinpoint, okay, where is my level of frustration and what can I do about it? Maybe you're like saying, well, the parents they just don't participate and all of this stuff. Well, what can you do? What can you organize to get some parent buy-in? There are things that are in our control to help bring that passion and joy back to what we actually love doing. Like you don't have to throw your whole degree away, right? Like some of y'all went to school for this and this is your thing, but you lose it and you don't know how to regain it. But it could be some really kind of small things that you can make to adjust and you could be okay.
I love this because this was actually where I was going next in terms of how to prevent burnout. And you've talked about a lot of things that teachers can do. And as you were talking, I also thought about how it's important to change our perspective about our kids, or about the responsibilities or the expectations that's attached to the role,
Yeah,
because sometimes we become so satisfied with things that may be happening in the culture or the community in which you're teaching in. And you can get so sucked up into that that you lose your zest
yeah,
or your passion for actually teaching. So it goes back to like thinking about why am I here, but then also changing your perspective in terms of your focus when you're in the classroom. And I like what you said about revisiting what you're doing in the classroom, incorporating things that you love
mhm,
so that you still have that area of interest in
yeah.
it. Mhm.
Exactly. And some people, when I first started teaching, there was always a need for English teachers. And it was like, oh, you should take the English test. I'm like, I took it, but I knew I mean, it wasn't a level of interest. I was like, if I'm going to teach, I want to teach something I love. So that's why I did business and I love
Mhm.
teaching business, right? So there's never like, oh, I don't want to be here and all this stuff. So some people might be doing things that they were pressured into just to get a job. So
Mhm.
if that is you, I really need you to revisit why you're doing what you're doing. And maybe you still want to teach, but maybe there's just another certification test you need to take so that you can really do what you really want to do versus just staying there. Because when I wanted to do business, they were like, don't do business because business teachers get jobs and they never quit, they retire. You're not going to find a job teaching business. Like I was straight up told that. And I was like, well, if God is calling me to do this, then there will be a door open and I will get a job teaching business. My first job, I went to an interview. They were like, we didn't even have this course available, or we weren't even going to teach it, but since you're qualified in it, you can teach it.
Oh,
A position was made for me.
oh,
So make sure that you're doing what you're passionate about and aligns with your purpose, and positions will open up for you. A lot of teachers get stuck. Well, I don't know if I can do it. And I'm like, if you only knew all the things that you're already doing, actually, then you would see that there are so many more possibilities than what you have or what other people have boxed you into.
awesome, awesome. So how does a person know if their purpose is teaching? Like how did you figure that out or discover that when as
Yeah.
it's to you?
I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to do it. My grandmother, she taught at the school of the deaf. She was like, be a teacher, there'll always be a job. And at this time, I might be dating myself, but you had to grade papers by hand. I was like, I don't want to grade papers. And so I was totally against it. But I wanted to teach, but I wanted to teach dance. So teaching was always something I enjoyed, but I just wanted to do dance, not, in the classroom. And so as that kind of went on, then I became a substitute and then a teacher's aide. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. I enjoy working with kids. But it was in 2019, I was in the classroom and I was asking God, why am I teaching? Like, I'm doing okay, but why? And he very plainly said, he said, Danielle, because you're praying for the students. That's why I have you here.
Hmm.
You're praying for these students, you're praying for the other staff, you're praying for the school. Like I am assigning you to this place because I need somebody interceding on their behalf. Some of us are in positions because we've been assigned to them. We do them well, very much so, but God has a reason that we're there because he's assigning us to it. And even after that, I was like, oh, he was like, this has never been just about teaching. I knew every morning when you were driving to work, you were going to pray and ask me to cover that school. That's
Mm.
why I had you there. That's why I kept assigning you to places, and I've worked at charter schools, public schools, private schools, alternative. I have worked at all types of schools in 10 years. And for most people, they're like, how many you switch schools again? And I would just be like, well, I don't know. And God was like, I was assigning you. Like I needed you to move. That wasn't because you weren't doing great or anything. I needed you in position. And so again, that becomes how do we know I'm supposed to be a lawyer? Well, maybe God wanted you to have that client because you brought them to Christ, right? And so just thinking about it from a higher level, that's how I know whenever God assigns me, I'm like, okay, what relationship do you want me to build? What student do I need to make a connection with? And that's what keeps me grounded. And I think that's what has covered me from burnout ever since then because I understand I'm here in this classroom, I'm doing my job, but we're building relationships. They're seeing a black woman that is successful, that shows up every day and all this stuff. And so I get to be an example. They get to see every word I'm not cursing, like they get to see something different. And so that's what settled me into okay, that's why we're teaching.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the conversations that I had with an educator this week is the difficulty they were facing with the school as a community and how much that is impacting their desire to come to work or how much that is impacting even their desire to teach. Can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, the first year I was teaching, I was at an alternative school. So these were all kids, middle school at that. They were all expelled or suspended for long periods of time from their school. Well, we only had one alternative school. So the two people that got in the fight, they all came to the same place, right? And so community was really big in that. But what I realized, I could not change what all happened outside of that classroom. But I could set a standard in my classroom that we're respectful of each other, that, when you come in, there's a solid routine, you follow that routine. I'm going to respect you, you're going to respect me. And one of the biggest things for those kids, because they had already made mistakes, they knew why they were there. I was very quick to forgive. They
Mhm.
would do something one day and they would come back to the class like, like kind of timid. And I would say, "Good morning. How's your day?" And they would be like, "Oh, it's okay." Because they are, like I said, they had already made some mistakes. And so me evening the playing ground every day, God, his mercies are new every morning. So I'm going to show that too. I'm going to correct you, of course, but I'm not going to hold a grudge. And I've seen so
That's
many teachers hold grudges against kids. And so every time they do something, it's just, and it's like, whoo, come, but it's because you've been holding a grudge for 3 weeks or a month. And so now every time that child does any little thing, you blowing up, and that can most definitely lead to burnout, because you're overexerting yourself on you remembering every little thing. That write it down, but you don't have to keep it in your memory. And like, oh, they coming to class today. Like, I've seen teachers like literally, I'm like, this not somebody you have to deal with outside of the school, like this is a student, but you have a life outside of that. But the problem was, some of them didn't. I have had some great mentors, teachers, but I would say, we'll come back on a Monday. Oh, what did you do this weekend? Oh, I was grading papers out. Grading papers? Like, no, what did you do for fun? Or a lot of them were not married, maybe didn't have any kids. And I was like, I want to be a great teacher, but I want to have a life outside of this. And so very quickly, I didn't take any work home with me on the weekends. It was going to get done. I was going to use my time effectively in while I was at work, but that was it. I knew that's not what I wanted for myself. And so a lot of times the community does have a part, but what you do in your classroom can make all the difference. Because I would have students acting real wild in somebody else's class, and the teacher would be like, "Well, how are they with you?" I'm like, they're fine. Like, what do you mean? Like, they do their work. And so really honing in and saying, you know what, this is my classroom. I set the tone. What am I going to do about that? And again, maybe it is okay if that's how you feel, transfer to a different school. But a lot of people are just leaving, like, I'm out. And it's like there might have been something else that could possibly have been done.
Yeah, and I love what you said about focusing on the community that you established within your classroom. And the other thing that is so important is the relationship, that engagement piece, like really being able to develop these beautiful, supportive relationships with our children who may or may not have that at home. And one thing that I can say is I have the awesome opportunity to work with some very passionate teachers who love what they do and who are simply good at it and have been doing it a long time. And a lot of the thing characteristics that I see in them that I don't often see in maybe, some cases that where it may not work is that they have very meaningful, they create very meaningful relationships with their students, relationships that involve discipline and not punishment.
Yeah.
It involves reinforcement without enabling. It really it involves a level of close the door and I'm gonna jack you up when nobody is looking,
Yeah.
undergirded with strong love,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And so those, and as a social worker, I always say it's funny because, I and this particular teacher,
Mhm.
I will never forget it, right? I was, because as a social worker, we always have to watch how we look, because it's not always about somebody's doing harm to a child, but sometimes it's about adjusting to the culture and the environment. And I'll never forget one day I was walking past and I witnessed an exchange with this teacher.
Mhm.
And so the kid said something to her, like he said something about her weight and,
Mhm.
something about like how big she was or
Yeah.
whatever. And I think at one point he even said something about, she gonna eat some potato chips or something like that. Something really mean that
Yeah.
middle schoolers
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
And she said, well, your father like it. It's like one of those your mama things,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
it stunned the kid,
Yeah.
right? Because he was like, and she was like, and she just kind of
Yeah.
went back at him.
Yeah.
And, from a very formal kind of professional thing,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, she said that to that kid, But in that moment, that was a moment of bonding for
Yeah.
them, and it was
Yeah.
a cultural thing. And so I think that's another thing in terms of where you bring your whole self into a situation, but you're building those relationships, and that helps with burnout too, because
Yeah.
sometimes teachers feel like they're taking all these hits from these kids and they
Sometimes.
can't fight back.
Exactly. And sometimes that's what the kid, like, they'll keep going until either the teacher cries or the teacher has to say something. But even when the teacher says it, they can't be to the point of frustration,
Yes,
right? They still have to be
yes,
a present, right? Like,
yes.
okay, yeah, like they still they can't be to that point. And so the kids know, even when I've taken on classes like in the middle of the year,
Mhm.
um I would say, look, y'all know each other already, but y'all don't know me and I don't know y'all. So
Absolutely.
let's figure this out. And so one of the assignments I do is called Me, Myself, and I. And I just give them a list of things to answer about themselves, because I know if they don't know that I care, it doesn't matter what I teach them. They won't care. They're not going to do it to the best ability. But if they know that, oh wait, she's here because she wants to be here and she wants us to be successful. And I tell them, I'm like, y'all, I do this outside, like especially when I was business coaching. I said, people pay me thousands for what you're getting.
Mhm.
So we're gonna take this seriously. And I even tell them, and because I teach business, we're gonna run this like an office. These are your colleagues, and I want you to treat them accordingly. How would you wouldn't say some stuff if you were at a job as if this is just a student next to you. So I want a level of respect in here. We're gonna have fun, we're gonna do all that, but we need to know that these are people, not just somebody that sits next to me, right? And so I do a lot of collaborative work and just getting them to talk and do all the things. Like one time we did networking. They literally had to go around and network with the other people in their class. And one of my students, these are seniors, he was like, that's the most fun I ever had in class. And it was just giving them a chance to talk to each other and finding out more information. And so relationship building has always been key. And you enjoy coming to work because they looking for you, you looking for them, and it's just an enjoyable experience. Yes.
Love that. I love that. And I think that definitely builds builds a better community within your classroom when those
Yeah.
relationships are there. Now kind of shifting a little bit in on the mental health side as a teacher, one of the things that we are finding more and more in our classrooms is that there are a lot of students that are unstable emotionally that teachers are teaching, right? And sometimes it creates difficulty
Yeah.
teaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Creates barriers. And it's also an aspect of, I always say secondary trauma because you're the teacher, you're in the classroom, and these kids are coming with trauma. They are coming with these mental health issues, these undiagnosed, these untreated. mental health issues, and it's just kind of coming at you as the teacher when you're simply loving on them, teaching them, and you have to, instead of it being a one-on-one like it would be in a therapy
Yeah.
session, you're talking about 25 to 30, and
Yeah.
maybe 10 of them are struggling emotionally. Like, so what do you say to that teacher who has to navigate that?
What I would say, one thing that I was able to do, and again, this might take a month to do it, depending on how many classes and how many students, but I started having one-on-one with my students. Like
Okay.
as people were doing, group work or class work, I would pull them one by one and we would talk. These were seniors, so we were talking about their goals. And as I was having those one-on-one conversations, I was getting to know those things, right? So when a student walked in my class, you having a bad day? Let's, you know, hold back for a second. And so being at the door, if you can, to like watch your students, because you can tell when something's off if you have a relationship, right? So hey, you need to go to the restroom right quick. Go to the restroom, then come back in. Oh, well, something might have happened in another class. And if you don't catch it at the door, it's about to happen in your class, and you had nothing to do with that. And so, really taking time, again, it might take some time to get a one-on-one with every kid, depending on the class, but it changed everything for me because, oh, wait, but your grandfather's in the hospital. Okay. So I know I need to check with you about that. If I see something that might be might be related to that, you're not mad at me. You just they might have been a rough night, right? And so knowing those things, there's this thing with capturing kids' hearts called good things. And so we would do good things every day.
Mm.
And the kids would get to raise their hand. I'm like, hey, who wants to do good things? Oh, we won our basketball game last night. I'm going out with friends. His payday, right? And so doing good things, and it wasn't just about their good things, I would share too. A lot of teachers are afraid to share about themselves. And when you do that, then you kind of become robot to them because it's like all they see is a person in a classroom. They don't get to hear, oh, it was my family reunion last week. They don't get to hear all of the life stuff that you do. And bringing yourself as a person will change things for you. Now, you need to share with being mindful of what you're sharing, but saying I went to a family reunion is not going to destroy a classroom. They're gonna say, oh, I went to a family reunion this summer. And it just opens the conversation. And we as teachers have to be willing to be a part of the community, right? Like don't just build it and just stay away. You need to actually be intertwined with the community.
That's good. That's good. I love that. And the other thing that I thought about too is how when we think about all of these things that are coming at you as a teacher, and how you have to, we talk about preventing burnout, but you also have to set those boundaries so that you don't take that stuff home, which
Mm-hmm.
then becomes, which leads to your burnout,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
so, how do you actively guard yourself from being a carrier, number one? But number two, how do you leave it in the school building?
Number one, you don't have to be on everybody's committee.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
going to ask you. You
Yeah.
can say no.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the high achiever teachers, oh, I'm on 5 committees. I do PT. I coach. When do you have time to do anything else? But there's something innate that counseling will probably help, people pleasing, that you just keep saying yes because you think if I keep saying yes, then and teacher, it's not that they're going to promote you because you keep saying yes. So it's not even that. It's just adrenaline or something, and then you're exhausted. And so you don't have to say yes to everything. That's number one. Because every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something in your personal life. You're
So,
you're staying an hour later at work. You're getting there 2 hours early. Like I would see teachers, I'm like, what time did you get here? They would be, oh, well, I got here 2 hours. What were you doing every day? I can imagine one day a week, but every day 2 hours early, 2 hours after school. First of all, they don't pay you for that. First of all. And second of all of that time, there was time in your day that you could have probably done that, but maybe you were standing in the hallway talking too long and you should have said, "Hey, I got some work to do. I'll talk to you later," and but are doing committee stuff. You're doing so much stuff outside of your classroom. You don't have time to do your work, basically. You're saying yes to all the school-wide stuff that you don't have time to do your lesson plans while you're at work because you were at a committee meeting or you were doing this and doing. Say no. Just say no. And then you can leave knowing, okay, everything for work is done. So I don't have anything to take home. It wasn't that I just wasn't taking work home. I did it at work. I did it on my planning period. I made sure it got done. So that meant that I wasn't, mingling and talking in the teacher's lounge about who did what and they said that. I don't have time for that. I'm here to work. Not that you don't get to make friends and stuff, but at some point, I have to go do my work. And a lot of times while I was teaching, I was in school. So not only did I have to do work I had to do lessons and write papers. So my time was very important to me. And then when I got home, I could just rest or I could go to brunch. I could take trips. People like, you a teacher? And yeah, but I was on the trip. One year I took a trip to Israel during the school year. I
Mhm.
said, hey, they have subs. I have
Yeah,
days. It
yeah,
is what it is. The school not gonna burn down.
that's right.
Be okay. And it was
That's
okay. Yeah.
That's good. That's good stuff. And I think one of the things that I heard was time management.
Mhm.
How well are you using your time? And then the other one was boundaries.
Yeah.
You don't have to show up for everything. And I think that that is something that I truly, truly live by. A lot of times people will say, "Can you do this? And can you do that?" And the first thing I'm thinking, how is this related or connected to my role?
Exactly.
No, is it mental health? What are we talking about here? Like, I don't need to be doing anything that is not connected
Mhm.
to, number one, my purpose, and number two, if I just don't have the time to
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah.
and be honest with myself and say that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that is important is that teachers get help, right? And so, as a clinician, of course, I'll always pull in that plug and say that you need help helping people.
Mhm.
And so, I work with a lot of professionals, a lot of leaders, whether it's teachers, business owners, CEOs, people with a lot of responsibility, a lot of, when it comes to in the professional world, they have a lot at stake. And I think that, for them, they're looking at therapy as a way to help them navigate all that is at stake so that they don't lose it,
Yeah.
right? So, part of that preventative that you talk about is, the preventative work, I would think, is being in counseling. If you're not in counseling, maybe a support group
Yeah.
or an organization like a teacher organization where you fellowship and you have times where you can do personal development and professional development, not so much professional
Yeah.
development as much as it is like spiritual
Mhm.
development and personal development. So I think that those are ways that you can help yourself prevent, where you can prevent burnout because you are opening up, you are sharing, you are dumping, and then you are gaining strategies and wisdom in terms of how to navigate that. And then we have professionals like Danielle. And I want you to talk a little bit about how you could help a person and how can they reach out and find you.
Yes. So the name of my company is called Renewed Consulting Firm. And it was from they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. But literally, as you begin to serve, you can be renewed once you get back to why am I serving? Why am I doing this? And so one of the things I offer is reignite sessions. If you're starting to feel like it's getting a little dim, and as we're getting closer to the end of first semester, I know, right? Thank you already count down to Thanksgiving. I already know that that's what's happening. But you might say, hey, I need something, a place to just talk, but to get strategy. How do I implement joy into my everyday life? What are some things that it might be very small things that I can change so that I am a whole person and I'm thriving inside it and outside of the classroom? So I offer one-on-one reignite sessions. And if maybe you're a principal or a superintendent and you're saying, hey, my district is struggling, my school is struggling with this, then I offer professional developments where I can train the staff on things that they can do every day. I have this thing called before the bell, during class, and after the bell that are literally going to break down different things that they can do throughout the day so that they can have a thriving career, and the students are getting the best out of these people, because a lot of people, you're losing really good teachers, like really, really good, because they just don't have the resources. So I offer professional developments. There's something that will be opening up really soon, the orchard, like you said, for that personal development, that spiritual development, and it will be in a place where it'll be easy accessible for teachers to say, hey, I just need a place. Even for me with the hideout with Apostle E, that was my place, right? It wasn't just centered around education, but that was my place to get refilled. That was my place to be seen. And so just being around community like that. And so again, reignite sessions, professional developments for the staff, and the orchard are ways that I can be of help to help prevent or reverse burnout.
I love that. Wait a minute. Let's back up a little bit because I feel like you kind of went through the orchard real, real fast.
I that one fast.
So, okay. So was that intentional because you're
No,
still teaching or
so what we're planning now, the
okay,
orchard will be inside of something. And so I'll be releasing that really
okay,
soon.
okay, okay.
So it's done and all that, but where it's going to be housed, I think is going to be really exciting because you're going to get access to that and some other stuff. And so, but everything is still on the website, and join the email list. That will be the best place. Join our email list. You'll keep updated. Follow me on social media, at Dr. Danielle Loading on Instagram, and Danielle Bertrand, just to keep updated with that. But we have some exciting things. The podcast is launching in November, the Reignite podcast. And so you'll get to hear stories about people that recovered, right? From not just teaching, but just various industries, because the goal is to reignite joy into people. And so hearing people's testimonies basically about where they were and what God did and where they are now and what resources they used to get there could be the very thing that can help you along your journey as well.
So, just going back just for a minute, as you are building the orchard, I want to ask a specific question because I think this will benefit, a lot of people. When you say the orchard, is it going to be like an online community where people from different states, like we're in Maryland, will teachers be able to have like a time to meet with a group of people, meet with you? Like, I think that is key to kind of specify.
Yes. So the orchard, yes, teachers, educators from all over the world will be able to come because it will be online. And so we will have different sessions, and one of them, voice validation, like saying no, like you can say no to certain things, right? Voice validation, creating a culture of celebration. A lot of teachers, they just don't they don't mind the work, they just don't feel appreciated. It's not the level of work, it's nobody saying thank you. We have Teacher Appreciation Week in May. That's too late.
Yeah,
We've been
yeah. How
working.
about it?
We've been working since August,
How
May.
about it? How about it?
Yeah, like what are we going to do there? But creating a culture of celebration, even within your classroom or your district or whatever that looks like. And so there are going to be different sessions. There's a workbook because I know teachers, we like to keep everything together. Like there are just things that are, God told me, created as if it was in the school system, created as if a teacher would pick this up like, oh, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And the orchard, just the name, we know in education, apples. And I said, the orchard, this is a place where they are cultivated, they are seen, safe, and supported. And so that's what the orchard is, where you don't have to code switch to have conversations. You can just have conversations and people in the room gonna know what you're talking about because they get it. And so sometimes when you're just in things and you're like, you might be talking about a kid and the parent is in here, well, you that's not what we're doing here. We get it. We understand your side of it. And so that's what the orchard is. It will be an online community. There will be retreats and things. Like it's just gonna be a whole thing because I know that there has been a lack of that. But if we really want to cultivate and keep not just people in the classroom, but keep you doing your kingdom assignment, something has to happen. And if I needed to build it and he instructed me to, that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. And I think that it's so needed. And when it comes to your podcast, is your podcast specific to educators as well?
No, it's going to be for everybody because you might need to hear somebody else's story that's not an educator, but there might be a tidbit that they say that you can easily implement and could change everything for you. So it's just about reigniting moms, reigniting it, just whoever it is. So every week you're going to hear stories and conversations, and sometimes it's going to be teachings about certain topics, but it's all about reigniting that joy, reigniting that passion, reigniting you enough so you can complete your kingdom assignment. That's really what we're trying to get to.
I
Yeah.
love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Well, thank you so much. I truly believe that this is has definitely been helpful to those that are listening. This is something that is so near and dear to my heart as it relates to burnout because um, that is, I believe, the trick of the enemy to get us so exhausted and tired that we don't complete or fulfill our God-given assignment. And that is a thing. You
Mhm.
know, sometimes we could be doing the right thing in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Sometimes we could be doing the right thing at the wrong time. And
Exactly.
I think that communities such as what Danielle has described and the information that she shared helps to give us clarity as it relates to what we're doing. If your purpose is teaching, guess what? She has created a platform to help you to continue doing what you're doing
Yeah.
so that what God can get the glory out of your life. And that's what I love. I love for people to be doing what God has called them to do and not be so worn down
Yes.
that they're not reignited. Listen, that's that is that the
Yeah.
podcast?
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes. So
Yeah.
this was awesome. And before we go, is there anything else that you would like to say?
I would just like to say to the people that are listening, especially those educators, burnout does not have to bury you. If you are finding yourself in a place, like Ebony said, counseling, go do the things, start saying no, make some small changes. I tell people, you know what, in the morning, play some gospel music, play some jazz, do something, right? Just set your mind to not rush all through the day. You're just rushing through the day. Like take control over your morning and ease into your morning is what I say. Just ease into it. You just jump in, ease into your morning and watch how your day begins to progress and you have conscious decisions you're making, not, reactive things. Everything you're not reacting to, you've already put things in place. And if you're still teaching and in this day and age, you're probably really good at what you do, and that's excellent. But don't allow that to keep you in bondage and having to say yes to everything. You're fine. You're a great teacher. Your students are going to be great. Everything is going to be fine, but you have to be okay. Your who you are as a person matters to God more than those test scores.
Yes.
I know they won't tell you that, but God cares about you too, just like He cares about those students. So just know that you are loved, that we appreciate your service. It is truly an act of service to do what you do and to do it every day with whatever you're getting paid to do it, but you do it because you love it. And so we appreciate you. You're loved. And we're just so happy that you are saying yes to this.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to hear the wonderful things experienced from this discussion. God bless you.